Hello? Hello? Is anybody there?
Yes. Am I speaking to a Mr. Harold Rosenberg?
Yes, I am Harold Rosenberg.
The Harold Rosenberg who is the grandson of the one Mr. Moses Sebastian Spielberg Rosenberg?
Yes, I believe so. I have not seen him for some years now. But who am I speaking to?
I represent Mr. Moses Sebastian Spielberg Rosenberg as a solicitor. I'm afraid that I have some rather worrying news for you.
Oh?
Your grandfather has been unwell for some time. He may not live much longer, and has availed to me a copy of his last will and testament. The will stipulates that upon the event of his death, his estate and holdings shall be divided evenly between two beneficiaries, one of whom is yourself. I am not entitled to divulge to you the identity of the other beneficiary, but he is presently waiting for you at Mr. Spielberg Rosenberg's residence.
Oh, this all comes as a bit of a shock.
Allow me to be so bold as to suggest that you make haste to Mr. Spielberg Rosenberg's estate, so that we can address some of the finer print of the matter.
Okay, I'll try my best to sort something out. I didn't know what to make of the solicitor's words, but I took his advice and made my way back to my grandfather's home. My grandfather, a gentleman of some distinction, had made his fortune trading arms in the Civil War. He was a strange and quiet man who preferred to keep himself to himself. My memories of him are faint, a whiff of smoke and a glint of silver as he sat by the fire, lighting his pipe, bestowing my infant self with one of his rare smiles. He lived in a remote part of the country, far up in the mountains, a figure of mystery and rumor to the townsfolk who lived below. Upon arrival, I called my wife to assure her that I was safe and sound, more so in body than in mind. For being back there was like stepping back in time. It was the landscape of my childhood, so familiar yet so foreign, so comforting yet so sinister. The hills were misty and blue, the paths rococo and haphazard. Passing a dying horse, watched over by its companion, I reflected on my circumstances, which were anything but certain. Upon approaching the house, an ancient citadel, complete with terraces and balcony, I was overcome by a wave of emotion, and it was with difficulty and trepidation that I ascended the steps and knocked. No response was forthcoming. Was I relieved? After all, I did not know who or what to expect. So I sat down and waited. And then a man emerged from around the corner. Upon seeing me, he hastened his pace and mounted the steps. He was friendly and invited me in.
Please, come in.
Thank you, I will.
I've been expecting you for some time now. I'm really very excited you're here.
Oh, really?
Yes, please, please. Allow me to take your coat.
Thank you.
Just turn around there while I do it.
Thank you.
Please, come this way, and do make yourself at home. Have a seat.
Thank you, I will.
Could I get you anything?
I could murder a beer if you have any.
Of course, there's always beer in my fridge.
Really? Haha, always a sign of a good host. Charming place, this.
Yes, indeed.
Lots of atmosphere and local color.
Fascinating architecture, too.
Quite a tidy estate altogether, really.
Yes, very amenable indeed.
I would imagine the old man has a fair fortune.
Certainly. It must be sizable.
So, how long has he been like this?
Who?
You know, himself.
Oh, I don't really know. The solicitor made no mention of that, but I do believe the doctor will be coming shortly.
Well, anyhow, I imagine his holdings will amount to a considerable inheritance. Enough to divide evenly between the two of us, I would hope.
Yes, I would hope.
I did not know what to make of the other beneficiary at first, but by midnight he had won me over, and it was with a lighter heart that I went to my room. But it was to prove a sleepless night for me. For hours and hours I stared and thought and dreamed. The only sound was the faint flutter of my heartbeats and the dim rasp of the old man's ragged, labored breathing petering through the thin walls of my bedchamber. And I pondered over my situation. I had not yet seen my grandfather, and I doubt he was aware of my presence. My friend had told me that his mental state had deteriorated considerably over the last few weeks, and he no longer recognized his intimates. And I was intrigued by my new friend, whose name turned out to be John Spielberg. It appeared that we shared a common ancestry, however distant. But I was confident that we would bond and make the best of our peculiar situation. And I was both drawn and repelled by him. He had a curious air, both approachable and yet reproachful, bold yet somehow timid, clear yet sometimes vague, interesting yet often bland, a living, breathing paradox of sorts. His character combined both warmth and a strange, hungry intensity, which I found criminally alluring. It was as if he spoke in cold metaphors that hung oddly on the quiet air, which stated little, but implied unknowable depths of profundity. Over the next few days we took many long walks and read to each other. And we talked about our lives, about our dreams and our aspirations, our memories and our fancies, our secret fears and our darkest secrets, our disappointments and our joys. And we stared into each other's eyes, and we saw each other's souls, and there was nothing between us. I had never been happier in all my life. Late one night, the doctor came calling as we sat together close by the fire. "Oh, doctor, welcome, welcome."
Yes, I am the doctor. I am here to examine Mr. Spielberg Rosenberg. He is upstairs, I take it.
Yes, this way.
This will only take a moment. You wait here.
Thank you, doctor. As the doctor went in to examine my grandfather, I grew nervous and paced outside, reflecting on the situation. The outcome of our fortune was entirely dependent on the doctor's verdict. He was a pudgy little man who smelt strongly of milk and faintly of cheap aftershave. His melted face was at once repulsive and sinister. I formed an instant antipathy toward him. After a few moments, he emerged.
Well, I'm afraid that it is bad news. His state of health is very poor, and he could pass at any moment. I am very sorry. It is very upsetting. But I will return in a few days to see if there is any change. Goodbye.
Well, Harold, it does appear that soon we shall be quite wealthy.
Indeed it does, John. What do you plan to do with your share of the money? I know you to be such a meticulous planner.
Yes. Well, Harold, I plan to invest in the burgeoning textile industry. Now that the Civil War has drawn to a close, the need for investment is absolute. Some say shipping is the way to go, but I find that sector far too turbulent for my timid taste. Textiles, yes, they are the way to go. And what of you, Harold?
Well, John, I plan to invest it in the stock exchange.
Oh, I have heard it said that that is a very precarious sector. One must be wise and exercise extreme caution when dealing with the stock exchange.
Indeed. It is always sound advice to exercise caution. Dallying with such happy fantasies of future prosperity, myself and Spielberg bided many pleasant and innocuous hours. But then the doctor returned, and events took a surprising turn.
This will just take a moment. Do sit down.
Dreadful though it was to admit it, I could not help but feel a surge of excitement. Victory was surely within our grasp. It took a considerable effort of will to mask my interior jubilation when the doctor re-emerged from the darkness.
In all my career, I have never witnessed such a thing. With absolutely no medical assistance from myself, it appears that through some miraculous triumph of the will, Mr. Spielberg Rosenberg is set to make a complete recovery. I am absolutely flabbergasted. I don't know what to think, but I'm sure my colleagues will be as confounded as I.
In that instant, my heart sank and my resolve floundered. In one foul swoop, the doctor had reduced our hopes and aspirations to ashes. With quavering intonation, I relayed the news to John, who was just as devastated as I. In quiet desperation, we wandered, lost, down the desolate, lonely paths, struggling to comprehend our dismal situation. The colour had drained from our faces, and in faltering mumbles we struggled to salvage some solace from this pathetic state of affairs.
Well, Harold, what an unexpected turn of events.
Yes, John. Who would have thought that the old man had it in him to keep on going?
It does look like we will have to revise our grand schemes. We shan't be coming across that inheritance any time soon.
So it seems. What do we do now? Should we stay or should we go?
It would be rash to leave too soon. We could stay a little longer, if only to keep him company.
Yes. And of course, there is always the possibility that the doctor's diagnosis could be misfounded. Stranger things have happened.
There is that possibility.
And I don't like that doctor one bit. He seems to me to be a really nasty piece of work. I could smell the whiskey on his breath a mile off.
Yes, he was probably intoxicated and gave a completely inaccurate diagnosis.
Yes, that is very possible.
Why, the poor fellow is probably up there now, lying and suffering in solitude as we speak.
Yes, I would rather die than go on living like that.
A life like that is a life not worth living.
Yeah, we would almost be doing the poor chap a service by, how should I say, hastening his end just a little.
Yes, indeed. It is the done thing in many parts. They have a word for it nowadays, I believe.
Oh yes, they have words for everything these days. And so, with newfound hope, we walked back to the house, discussing ways and means. It was like a new dawn. Even the twittering birds on the trees sounded more gay, imparting a kind of benediction to our plan as we strolled and they sung. I felt wildly excited, and I knew that life would never be the same again. John, too, was visibly affected. The old fire had returned to his eyes, and he spoke passionately with eager...
Whoa, wait a minute. Look at this, Buster.
What's going on, Neil?
These two guys are planning something unethical.
Whoa, they better watch out or Dogman will find out. And he's a moral arbiter.
What is an arbiter?
An arbiter? Oh, you silly. An arbiter is a person who settles a dispute or has ultimate authority in a matter.
Wow, that is real neat.
Oh no, here's Dogman's wife, and she's real peeved. Do you ever get the feeling somebody is watching us?
On occasion, yes. Why...
It's
Attention, 1, 2, 3.